Welcome to the next instalment of my series on how to write your novel using that most unlikely of writing implements, a round Oxford bus ticket. In the previous video we saw how the aim of writing fiction was to inveigle the reader into an altered state, a dream. Now I want to look at how we do this. How can we create a dream using nothing more than those black marks on the page we call words? We'll be taking bus number 3. Get off at the high street and take a little wander back in time. Not too far. We're going in search of the ghost of this chap, Sir Arthur QUILLER-COUCH. Well, he was a prolific author who studied at Trinity College, Oxford, at the beginning of the 19th century, and wrote a number of poems about Oxford. And he also gave a series of lectures later at Cambridge, which were published under the rubric On the Art of Writing. Well, this book made a great impression on me when I first encountered it. I think it might be one of the finest writing textbooks that no one has ever heard of. I mean, it's available on Project Gutenberg free of charge, so I'll put the link to that in the notes below. Well, his name is also linked in the museum of my heart with one of the most shameful episodes of my life, one which I will reveal to you now, even though it is extremely painful. It happened in 2009 when I was teaching a creative writing summer school at EXETER College, Oxford. And I remember saying to one of the old professors that I was a great fan of Sir Arthur QUILLER-COUCH. And he said, "Oh, yes, QUILLER-COUCH." He said QUILLER-COUCH. I'd been pronouncing it QUILLER-COUCH. Well, as anyone who's familiar with English social norms will know, the gaffe I just committed was on a par with, breaking wind in the presence of the Queen. And sadly, I was never invited back. Which is a great shame, really, because it was a lovely experience teaching in those honey-coloured Oxford University buildings in an atmosphere steeped in ancient learning with a very agreeable bunch of students from all over the world. And they called me Professor. So what was it that I so admired about QUILLER-COUCH? Well, he tells us when writing fiction to use words for things we can see and touch, which is to say simple, short, familiar Anglo-Saxon words, rather than abstract polysyllabic words. Well, this might surprise some people because we're often given the impression, aren't we, that fine writing involves using words that most people haven't heard of and have to look up in a dictionary. But when it comes to our task as a novelist, this isn't the case. It may be the case with non-fiction, which is designed to give information, but with fiction we aim to give an experience. And as we've seen, the experience unfolds in things called scenes, which are the principal building blocks of stories. The scene is where the action takes place, live, so to speak. It happens before our eyes, or at least before our inner eye. So the task of the writer is first to imagine the scene in great detail and transfer it to the reader's mind using words. At the theatre, the scene is made out of wood and paint, but in our mind's eye it is made from words. So we use words for things you can see and touch, like cat and dog, because you get an instant picture of them in your mind. Now, QUILLER-COUCH reserves special praise for Shakespeare in this respect, for always seeking what he called the definite, particular, visualized image. And he contrasts this with Marlowe, who offers the beautiful generalization, the abstract term, the thing seen at a literary remove. And that is the point, the thing seen at a literary remove. You want your reader to be right in the middle of the vividly imagined dream, not viewing it through the keyhole. As an example, he quotes the last scene or last few verses from Shakespeare's Venus and Adonis, where Venus finds her blood-stained lover dying. As a snail whose tender horns being hit shrinks backwards in his shelly cave with pain, and there all smothered up in shade doth sit, long after fearing to creep forth again. So she sees her wounded lover and recoils, and it's like you hit the horns of a snail which then withdraws into its shelly cave and won't come out again. Isn't it just so perfectly visual and palpable? No writer of English, QUILLER-COUCH says, so constantly chooses the concrete word in phrase after phrase, forcing you to touch and see. No writer so insistently teaches the general through the particular. And if you fail to do this, you will be writing what he called jargon, which is to be perpetually shuffling round in the fog and cotton wool of abstract terms. And whereas I greatly admired QUILLER-COUCH's book for its lessons about writing, he himself reserves his praise for another, much older book, the King James translation of the Bible, written at the beginning of the 17th century by a committee of 47 men. It's one of the great prose masterpieces of world literature, and the only occasion in history, QUILLER-COUCH points out, where a work of art was created by a committee. The majesty of the language resides in its simplicity. Words are things you can see and touch, short, simple words. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Well, I don't know about you, but I think that is beautiful. The Lord sounds like a great bloke, and I would love to have his goodness and mercy follow me all the days of my life. Wouldn't you? Or consider this, and a man shall be as an hiding place from the wind, and a covert from the tempest, as rivers of water in a dry place, as the shadow of a great rock in a weary land. Is there not something truly wonderful about the shadow of a great rock in a weary land? Where does the power and beauty come from? Well, to get a hint, try removing the occasional antiquated verb ending such as anointeth, then go and buy a dictionary aimed at 7-year-old children and look up the words. I don't think there's anything there that would tax the ability of a literate child. Well, this all strikes me as great news. The simplest words can achieve the most dramatic effects. In the next video, I want to look more closely at how we can generate powerful emotion in the reader. And we will be considering an insight into writing given to me by Princess Diana shortly after she died.